I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. If you can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Rachel, can you call roll, please?
Here. Was it?
I wanted to make an announcement that executive sessions were held on Wednesday, November 15th and December 4th, both at 6:00 PM to discuss legal matters with the solicitors. Council, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. We'll now move on to public comments. We encourage all of those speaking to come to the podium and speak in the microphone since we are transmitting through Zoom. Complete your comments within 3 minutes. Stay on topic. Present your comments in the spirit of cooperation and collaboration, and be respectful of the institution of Borough Council and the public in your words, tone, and gesture.
Charles Watson, 523 Magnolia Street in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. Wanted to reflect on the things that have happened this year. To bring the attention back to that your job is to serve the citizens, and everything you do should reflect that. To the fact that even when your council members do something that crosses our ordinance or laws, not in a very good way, that you correct each other. That's the way a good system works. I have so many notes in this book. So many. And in another book at home, and your pages. But my question to myself is, what has, since it's the end of the year, what has been done to represent the residents of Kennett Square, Pennsylvania in 2023? We had a lot of tax burden. It's unfair to us. And lack of services. We have figurehead in administration that's too heavy for 1 square mile. And we seem to exist only to pay salaries. We don't need to hire all these people in the police department, in the public works, in administrative office, or any other at the sewer plant, just for them to wake up and come there and get paid. There's a service that goes with that. And it has been neglected, and you've been not honoring anything that would be positive for the citizens to enjoy themselves in the taxes that they pay without squabbling. So I think that needs to be said. Taxation without representation is definitely evident here. We also see favoritism. We see lack of abiding by ordinances, laws. And just a few examples was the continuation of the compounding debt of the purchase of 600 South Broad Street. It's murderous. The purchase price, I say 12.5. Doug says 10. Either way, it's millions. It's not dollars or thousands. It's costly. And we were 1 square mile with 7 federally targeted areas. That means the income said, we qualify for HUD grants or HUD money based on the income levels of the population of our town in 7 different geographic regions. That's broad. That's real broad for this kind of expense to be made. It's an underdeveloped building, still yet to be designed. The citizens had no knowledge of any of these things I'm telling you about. None of it came out through business being conducted here thereafter. 2 roofs and a HVAC was the repair included in the contract. That's what we told them prior to you taking the seat. That's what we were told, that they were paid for. They being Genesis. Over a year later, as a 3rd roof or 3rd project was announced that needed to be done, we found out that $1.3 million was in a separate account to be utilized for the repairs, and it was our money. And we had to ask Genesis, could they help us repair something that wasn't ordinarily first talked about? That's out of hand. That's poor management and a rotten contract, whoever did that. And I know the names of the people who was doing the bartering. They know it too, because they had a lot to say. That's how we determine. Nothing personal here. Job you're supposed to do. $53,000 tax bill that you had negotiated down. Because you went back and told the school we use 39% of the building. You didn't expect a tax bill, but you got one. That's citizen money. It's not yours. $4 million for a police station that you tell us you got grant money for, but you seem to have to float a loan and then put Bird Street, which you know is a cuss word to me, in with the police department money for a loan. Additional money's being spent for this building. Then we hired that little group out of Greenville, Delaware. They're supposed to be doing something, marketing the areas here for a certain amount of 100,000 or something or more. I can look and get the exact, I just didn't have time. I haven't heard anything on that yet, but they're supposed to be developing that. Then we heard about $800,000 to take the file cabinets out, to take the equipment left by Genesis. When you move out of your house, you're supposed to clean it out. Especially in such a situation like that, and it didn't happen. Sorry, asthma's getting me. But also, we had employee flight, terrible employee flight. Nobody wants to have that kind of turnover. Nobody. It's always the veterans who teach the rookies. We don't even have that now. So there's going to be a lot of misdone, mishandling, misunderstood, just plain not knowing till we get it right. Because you have a whole bunch of new people in here. And you have some positions not even filled. Okay, that's just a little bit out of hand. And the three new administrations, nope, nothing personal. But I know they have to be $150,000 plus packages is what you call it. When you talk about over, when you talk about salary, benefits, okay, medical and retirement. Let's do the adding up for 1 square mile.
Thank you, Ms. Watson.
That build on a really rural income. I'm the only one talking today. There's nobody else coming up here.
There might be.
There's
So
nobody else that came up here.
we've hit the time. So
Excuse me, you rush it off when somebody's saying something to hurt you that adds up objectively to everything that's been done. For a conversation and for progress, you got to hear both sides, and you refuse to do it, Doug. And you just continue to violate by not having Robert's rules.
public
You
comment
don't follow
always
Robert's
has a
rules.
time period, and I appreciate.
And
your
you don't
comments,
bring
Ms.
everything,
Watson.
you do that only to me.
Is
The
there
public knows.
is there
Is there
any
any
other
other
public
comment?
comment?
Anybody else coming up?
Ms. Watson, thank you.
You should be able to hear at least 10 minutes of a citizen comments if nobody's coming up.
Thank you, Ms. Watson.
You should be able to hear that. And you people should fight for me to speak.
Is there any
Because
other
I got more
public
to say
comment?
than that you need to hear. The fact that you try to
All
sell
right,
the
that's,
library parking
Ms.
lot
Watson,
with
thank
the
you.
library. the
Thank you.
parking lot With the library.
We appreciate it.
The fact that you haven't got our pool back. We're talking about everything you haven't done this year. And
Thank you.
have money from
We
us,
can
and
get
you've
to,
done nothing
we can
for
get to
us.
that if we can get to our action.
You
items.
never got to.
Thank you.
You never got to it, Doug. You've been inefficient since the word go.
Ms.
You have
Watson,
just been brushing elbows with other people and laughing and thinking it's funny and this is business.
Ms. Watson, I
you don't
appreciate
like
that
it-
you're using this as the
and if you don't
opportunity
like
to
it-
get these digs in.
No,
but
I'm
your
not having
time
digs, honey,
For
'cause I can dig you
public
down.
comment on the action
And-
item and the acts of council is over.
Because you
Thank
don't
you.
want me to talk, because you know you didn't do right and you screwed the
Chief,
citizens.
she almost made it till the end of the
Because you
month.
screwed. I have never, listen, I gave it a
Ms.
1 year
Watson.
to October.
Ms.
and I
Watson,
told you I was going to.
everyone on Zoom is
Oh.
appreciating this scene right now.
Yeah, oh,
Thank you
yeah, I
for
bet
your
you.
time.
I'm not worried about Zoom.
We will be
I'm worried
moving.
about America seeing me.
We will be
America
moving.
needs to see me.
We will be
Okay?
moving to the reports.
Yeah,
now.
you don't want to
Thank
hear
you.
it because you screwed the citizens, wasted money, and we get no services.
Ms.
No
Watson.
large trash pickup, no street cleaning,
Ms.
No,
Watson.
no signs. Nobody governing the new business down there. Nobody worrying about citizen concern. It's a time we grandstand, so you people know you never need to take a public office again,
Thank you, Ms.
Anyway.
Watson.
anywhere in America. And you better look down Washington to see what they're doing on the floor.
Thank you.
And you know, people are coming right at the throats.
Is there any other public comment tonight?
I'll try to be nice. Ken Edwards, 412 Meredith Street. I've noticed in riding around town that in certain areas, the crosswalks have been remarked. And I kind of find it odd that an area close to a school system isn't one of them, although they were done within a block north and a block west and south of the school.
Which streets, Cam?
Meredith and Magnolia, Meredith and
Around Mary D?
yeah.
Okay.
They've been done. Usually they're all done within the borough, and this is just from past experience seeing it. They're all done within 3 weeks. And yet seems like a certain portion of the town has been forgotten. It's not because there's no foot traffic. You name an event that this borough has, I can guarantee you at least 5% of the people that are attending it are walking from where they parked over on the west side of town. Guaranteed, because I see them every time we have something. 7, 8, a group of 7 and 8, a family of 5, a couple of stragglers. You talk about walkability in the town. That's part of walkability. It's also part of safety for those who are attending the events, plus the general public. And again, there are things, some people might think they're small. But if you've got street markings and you've got crosswalk lights up and they're not marked and somebody gets hit, there's a possibility to borough because of forgetfulness or trying to save some money. Didn't do it because they were not marked and when they were not marked properly. That's all I'm saying. It's a protection for you. For once, I'm saying that for the council and the borough. And you know how high some of those lawsuits can get. They're not cheap. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Any other public comment? There being none, we'll move to the reports. I do not have a president's report, but I'll just give the personnel report as we are wrapping up Kyle's review, and I'm going to get that out to all of council for your review. And also the contract for the borough manager has been edited and is on its way to the solicitor's office. And hopefully that should be available for all of council for the first meeting in January. Mr. Manager.
I would just respectfully ask that we provide some appreciation for the staff that we have. We have a really good staff in the borough, and we should be really proud of that. And we're working with fewer staff people than we did even 2 years ago with, I would argue, higher standards. So here in the holiday season, I would just ask if there's a disagreement with any of us up here, we sign up for it. Staff does not sign up for this constant public attacking. It's just not right. So if you have an issue, we can talk after. If anyone does, you can always reach out, but it's got to stop. We've got really good staff here and it's just not fair. As far as the other comment, we will check into the striping and street markings. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Anything from the solicitor's office?
Nothing other than the stuff that's on the agenda, which we can talk through as we get.
Chief.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. Did submit an electronic report to you as usual. The only updates to that I would like to talk about is we completed our Bluebeards for Charity event. Our KSPD officers were able to raise over $1,800 in donations, which are split between Unite for Her, Sambuco Children's Education Fund, Child's Light, and Chester County Crime Victim Center. In total, Chester County law enforcement raised over $60,000, which is just truly incredible to continue this effort. Our officers, have spiritually, joined this each year. And as you can see, you'll only have to put up with a couple of hairs on my chin for a few more weeks, and we're going to call it quits. The next thing I'd like to talk about, and this goes, towards our staffing and the job that our staff do. Unfortunately, we had an officer-involved incident on Friday, November 17th, as a vehicle pulled out in front of one of our officers as he was traveling up North Union Street. The officer sustained an injury, has been out of work since this accident. And most likely, our vehicle is going to be a total loss. We're working with both fronts, with insurance companies. The officer was just out there doing what he does, keeping the community safe. Somebody pulled out in front of him. We did get good news on this front that the officer will most likely not require surgery to correct the issue with his hand that was injured during the accident. So we hope to have him back, as soon as possible. We expect that to be sometime, hopefully in January, maybe late. And to kind of go on that front, it has been an extremely difficult year. I'm happy that 2023 is coming to an end here. We started the year short on staff with officers out, due to injuries. We've ended the year now with officers out on injuries. Currently down 2 full-time officers because of work-related injuries. One sustained from dealing with a mental health crisis that caused a shoulder injury to the officer. He's been out since August of this past year. We hope to see him back to work in February, and we would just hope to keep all of our staff safe that is diligently working for us. That's all I had to add. Have any questions about the report I did submit? Happy to answer.
Thank you, Chief. Just one question, Chief. What is MCSAP?
That is MCSAP. That's Motor Carrier Enforcement. And that's our commercial vehicle.
Okay, so you had to reduce that because of the officers being out.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
we have been running extremely, and when I say tight, I don't know if we could possibly function.
Thanks, Chief. Chief McCarthy, anything from the Regional Fire Company? Anything, Chief? Thanks, sir. Committees, Finance Committee.
Finance Committee met on November 16th. We've gotten a bunch of comments to say that folks can't hear us very well on the mics and sometimes on that mic, just so we're all aware of that. November 16th, we had a Finance Committee meeting, reviewed the financials with our Director, Nick. Thank you very much. Overall, in really good shape, and you saw that again tonight from some of the reports that were sent out as well. Reviewed the bills, no issues with that. Probably the biggest issue that the Finance Committee is sort of just starting to look into is to get a longer term perspective on the financials for this building, for 600 South Broad, sort of the complex here, just to understand the long-term financials, both from an operating standpoint, but also a capital investment, the financing of the building, the bonds that we have. And we'll talk about that a little bit later tonight as well. And the tax implications of how we want to use it and what the sort of the longer term vision is for the building. Those are some of the highlights. Joel, did I miss anything? And then if I may briefly, Mr. President, just briefly on the sewer task force that we have working with between the borough and the township. We met on November 6th. Probably the biggest outcome, and Rob, correct me here, is in terms of the aqua update. We thought by reducing the aqua allocation to New Garden from 100,000 to 70,000 gallons would give us 30,000 gallons of capacity to potentially use in the borough or elsewhere. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The type of sewage, to leave it at that, is high quality New Garden sewage, which unfortunately is not the same as lower quality sewage, which means we just don't have a lot of capacity that we can sell. Well, that was fairly delicate, wasn't it? But we're certainly working together on the Chapter 94 reports, which basically give you the actual reservation or expectation of the use of sewer capacity going forward, and really challenging ourselves and the Kennet Township to understand really what the needs are, because we all recognize that we're kind of coming to the end of our capacity for the plant that is in the borough, and how we're going to increase that capacity. And if Kennet Township wants some of that capacity going forward, how are we going to afford that capacity and so forth. So a lot of complex issues. We're on top of it. We're also redoing the 537 plan, which has to be done. Well, we're shooting to have it done mid next year, May of next year. We should have the first draft of the joint portion. We're still shooting by the end of this year, Rob? Okay, so brief update on that as well. Thank you. Missed anything, Rob?
Human Relations, anything, Mara? Public Safety did not meet this month. All right. And that is the end of the reports. We'll get into the discussion items, and Mr. Karati, I think we're going to start this off with the public meeting for considering the adoption of the 2024 budget.
Yeah, so this is the, well, I think we've got two items that are interrelated. The first one is the adoption of the budget. The next one is the adoption of the ordinance that deals with the budget. The, both have been advertised and are ready for your consideration. I know that the budget, full package of the budget, as well as the, short version PowerPoint slides have been up on the borough's website. They've been available for review, and we obviously talked about them at prior council meetings. Now it's ready for Wednesday night for your consideration.
Thank you. Kyle, did you want to kick this off with anything?
Sure. This is the same budget that was presented here in November with a few minor edits to it. The tax rate, there was some discussion last time as to how it would change. It is proposed to go up 1.20 mils from last year.
Discussion from, or any questions right now from council? Any discussion? Mhm.
So part of that 1.2 mil is the voted for library tax.
Yeah, so to clarify, 0.05 is for the library tax, because about a month ago, borough residents voted to raise taxes by 0.2 mils. Now, the borough previously had 0.15 worth of library contribution in our budget. So to make that whole, it went up by that 0.05 amount. And then the remainder of it is the fire and EMS increased cost.
Any other discussion?
Kathleen and I were kicking around earlier, if it's okay, Kathleen, that the current budget and staffing structure outsources an awful lot from a codes standpoint. And the manager and I and Kathleen at different times have kind of kicked around the concept, and I certainly have some concerns about that being outsourced long-term. I think we owe it to Kyle and staff to give him a chance to make sure that in a much more cost-effective way that he can do that. We can do that in an outsourced sort of model. I know we're bringing a planner in next week, I think, starting up. But all the codes enforcement and inspections are outsourced, and it's been working well. We've gotten actually some pretty good compliments, as I understand. But just to keep an eye on that long term to make sure that the level of service, which I know is your objective, is maintained to the codes area as well.
And I would just say we're keeping it open if we get any great candidates to go partially in-house. So I think long-term hybrid makes more sense. Basically, I think there are occasions where our size makes it where it's more logical to staff at, say, 70% full. So there's a lot of certifications, right? But how often does a borough have a massive development effort? So we should staff to the typical year and then contract for the average, you know, the 1 year, the large development every 5 years. So that's the thinking. It would be a hybrid model. long-term.
Anything else from council? Mr. Mayor, you want to weigh in on? Mhm. Any objections to moving the budget to consent on Wednesday?
Should we? And should we give the, well, residents of public the opportunity to come again on Wednesday to express any comments or concerns that they have?
I mean, there'll be a public comment
Right.
time on Wednesday. So if the,
Flip vote.
I would suggest pulling it out. There are a couple, we're getting a couple final revisions from other, you know, revenue sources. So we have a couple minor tweaks to make.
that is fine. And second is considering the adoption of the ordinance establishing the 2024 borough tax rate.
And again, this is just the ordinance, whenever we increase the taxes in any way, from the borough perspective, we need to do so by ordinance. Reflects the library tax that was passed by the referendum, as well as our general.
Any questions, clarification? Mr. Crotty?
Doesn't state yet now, it's just state.
No, it states the amount, so it's 11.25 mils for our general millage and 0.200 mils for the library.
It seems as if we're taking the other one off consent, that this probably should follow that.
Yep, that's fine.
Yep.
All right. Third financial item tonight, considering the ordinance and resolution for financing the new police station.
We do have our bond counsel here, Mark Stein, as well as I assume someone from Brian Bradley's office who can talk the numbers and the structure that are associated with the bond financing or debt that would be associated with the Birch Street /
Nick, are you kicking this off? We would like Mr. Stein to, or? Okay.
I'll have them address any questions that council has.
I'm Mark Stein from Eckerd Siemens. We've been bond counsel to the borough for quite a long time, actually. And with me is Mandry Jade from RBC Capital Markets. The ordinance that has been prepared is the only piece of legislation that will need to be enacted by Borough Council in order to incur the indebtedness to finance the renovations or the build out to the police station, as well as the Birch Street projects. It authorizes appropriate actions, appropriate signatures, appropriate filings that need to be made under state law. And it basically it gives the borough the ability, as it's done in the past when it's done financings, to move forward with the transaction in order to have the money available to construct the capital projects. If there's any questions, it'd be my pleasure, Andrew's pleasure, to answer the financial side. I can do the legal side.
I had a number of questions that I shared the response with council earlier today that were all answered.
Okay.
I mean, it's a short term, the intent is a short-term bond that has no prepayment tied to it, literally to be able to fund the construction of the police department, to take advantage of the grant for Birch Street. And what am I forgetting?
It's Birch Street and the police station.
And the police station. So seems all in order to me.
Just to clarify, I see some new faces in the audience. The stimulus dollars given out at the beginning and during COVID were kind of old school grants in the sense that you got the cash and you could spend it. Every other grant, for the most part, and these fall under the second category, are reimbursement grants. So you have to go out, you have to fund the project. Once it's done, then the state will reimburse you. So that's the reason for having this, is that we have to get the cash. We don't have, millions lying around. We have to front the cash with this. But we're doing it as short as possible based on our grant consultants on when we'll get the cash back, and then it immediately goes to this, to paying this off.
Councilman Norris's comment or statement a moment ago, the one tweak or caveat to that is there is no prepayment after the initial periods for each of the bonds. So there will be one set of bonds or notes associated with Birch Street, one that reflecting that materials, and the other with the police station.
Yeah,
Mark
there
can
will
correct me
be,
if wrong.
prepayments, but however, for the police station, I believe that's a 3-year, the grant won't come in for 3 years. So that rate will be locked for 3 years. For Birch Street, the rate will be locked for 1 year because it's a shorter reimbursement on the grant. So this way you'll get a fixed rate for that period, those 2 periods for each of the different principal amounts, and then you can prepay if when the grant money comes in.
Anything else from council? Any objection to moving this to consent on Wednesday? Hearing none, that'll go to consent. Thank you all.
Thank you. And just for the record, the ordinance was advertised as required by state law.
Thank you. Right, Public Works, considering the approval for the bid award for the crosswalks on Willow Street. Rob's making his way up.
You'll remember going back a couple months here, the county awarded us with this grant to do this work. So this is us having gone through the bid. And again, this is ARPA, so this is unique. This is stimulus dollars. We get the cash up front to do the project, hence why there's no loan to do it.
Okay, so this is the first phase of the Willow Street project. The first phase is replacement of the speed hump that is in front of La Michicana. And it will be replaced with a concrete stamped and colored red brick. We also will install more storm drains in that area to catch the water that's coming down and will be coming up to the speed table. The speed table is, and I believe I explained it to you before, it acts as 2 things. Basically, it's a ADA crossing because it's raised to the level of the curb, and it also acts as a traffic calming. So that's basically what this is about, and it's part of the ARPA. It's funded by ARPA, and it's part of a larger project that the county is supporting.
I'm gonna drive you crazy with this request, Rob.
Go ahead.
Can we get a bunch of those little guys to put in the middle of that people hit, and then we have to replace them, but at least it slows down the traffic for a time?
Yeah, we can.
The little
They're
flag
not
guys?
cheap.
Yeah.
They're not cheap, and they do get run over. We did have some up there, and yes, and
I
it
know
was a
they,
terrible death.
I know they do, but if we use them and enforce them, I'm not, that doesn't have to be the little orange guy with the little orange flag. There's the, Pennsylvania state law says crosswalks are mandatory, yielding. It just, there's so many spots downtown and it gets used so much. This weekend was terrific with the amount of people flowing around. And it's just not a real safe street to walk. You're dodging,
Yeah, and we're going to go to the second phase of this, and you're going to see something else, and it for traffic calming. So we're working on that.
Cardboard cutouts of Bob Norris.
They'll speed up though. That's the problem.
Then part A here. So any questions or discussion from council?
When? conclusively point this start happening?
We're waiting till after the holiday season, so we're not ripping up the Main Street during the holiday season. So actually, I talked to the contractor and told him that he would probably get a notice to proceed first week of January.
And then how's that gonna affect traffic on route?
There is going to be a lane closure.
Will be one side at a time?
Yep, one side at a time. And as we go into, and we're going to discuss the second phase of it too. As we go into it, the nice thing is that, and it's, economy of size, the same contractor got the second bid. Which stands to reason because he's already mobilized there. That way the contractor can do the crosswalks down at Willow and State at the same time. So it'll be basically one lane closed from Willow up just past La Michicana, and then they'll switch over to the other side.
Be done by
It should be, yeah. As long as we don't get a bunch of snow or it doesn't, get really
Yeah.
cold. But no snow this year.
Any objection to moving part A to consent? Not seeing any. Part B, Rob.
Okay, second phase is down at East State Street and Willow, and also East Cypress and Willow. We are putting crosswalks in. They also match the speed table crosswalk. So it's a herringbone pattern brick, and it will be bordered with white so that it's easily visible. The problem we had with this one was the ADA compliance on the ramps, because none of those ramps were ADA compliant. One of the ramps we actually measured at 25% grade, so it's not too good. So, but in order to get ADA compliance, one of the things we had to do on the north side of State was to actually create bump outs on where you come down Willow, the hill towards State. We had to create bump outs for it so that we could get an ADA compliant ramp on each corner. And part of that, which Tim will be happy, is that terrible dip that's at the bottom of Willow going on to State will be regraded to be able to handle traffic a little nicer without bumping the bottom of your car there. But this is 4 crosswalks in 2 intersections, plus all ADA ramps in those areas. And I would like to say there were, going down on Cypress and Willow, there were 3 properties that no matter what we did, we couldn't get it to work out unless we went into private property and asked the property owner for pedestrian easement so that we could extend the sidewalks back into their property. And fortunately, all 3 properties were owned by the same people, and they approved all of it. So I guess that would be my contractor.
Any questions? Discussion from council? And just for clarification, A and B, I think we're in different orders, so we talked about B first and then A.
Okay.
So.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I was just looking, I was like, boy, does this sound like A? All right, but regardless, both are going to go to consent. Thank you, Rob.
If I could take a minute.
Yep.
To answer the crosswalks. Ken, the crosswalks, you need to tell me specifics, because there are crosswalks that are going to be done under the Safer Routes program. That's actually supposed to start next week. I can't put paint down because they're putting thermo down on the crosswalks, and thermo won't stick to paint. So if you can tell me what intersections we may have missed, I can tell you if it's covered under the Safer Routes program. All right, we'll take a look at it. All right. Yeah, if they were paying it before, they should be paying it again. So it may be something that was just missed. Yep. Okay. All right, thanks.
Rob,
Rob, I
got
don't
one
know.
more question for you.
I
Yeah.
don't know if this is a you answer or a I'll answer. But we have a lot of telephone poles getting swapped like on Pickle Street. And I've seen them around towns, like all the way up to 52. Do
Yeah.
we know when these telephone poles are gonna get? You know anything about them?
Pico doesn't tell us when and we usually only find out when they
In the
go through
middle?
one.
When it's happening?
Well, usually when they go through one of our sewer laterals. So that's when we find out.
Just so you know, they're all over Sickle Street
Thanks, Rob.
and it's all the way up. to 52.
That's gonna be great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving to considering the amendments to the 2023 budget. Nick, you kicking this one off or Kyle?
Yeah, Nick. Or
So each year we, as you know, the budget process is, there's a lot of guesswork involved, educated guesswork, but there are some guesses. As we go throughout, through the year, and evaluate how we are actually performing against the budget, we get to the end of the year and we need to reevaluate how close, how varied some of the line items are. And the purpose of these amendments is to kind of get the budget closer to what actually has happened over 2023 and where it projects to be at year end. I can't speak for more than a year ago because I wasn't here before then, but I believe this is a typical practice that we've done annually.
Questions from council? But you're right, Nick. This does happen every year. Near the end of the year, when we're on new budget time, we see what's transpired over the course of the year. I did see a couple capital projects canceled or delayed moving forward or move forward. Any brief summary of what those were?
yeah, I mean, the two biggest ones really are this police station and Birch Street. So it was good to see, you know, that's moving forward.
Anything else from council? All right, any objections to moving this to consent? All right, thanks, Nick.
Okay, thank you.
Resolution of matching funds for the RACP grant for the new police station. And I think this is just a clerical change, right?
It is. Yep. It was a change in the bank account number.
Questions from council? All right, that, feel comfortable moving to consent. Next is the personnel manual.
So this follows probably 6 months. President and vice president could clarify that, but probably 6 months of working through with legal, our personnel manual. Practically speaking, it's a lot of reductions. What we found is that there was a lot of unnecessary language in the manual. Basically, you have the personnel manual, which is essentially a more of a legal document, and then you have administrative policies that fill in a lot of the details of compensation and you know, workplace rules, things like that. So what we did here was really cleaning up the legal document to be succinct and really what it needs to be. We did have a request from our solicitor to push this back by a month to give a little more time for discussion. I think it's warranted. We're not in a rush to do it. So my recommendation would be to push this for a January discussion.
But just to reiterate that a lot of it was just that at any organization, you're going to have your employee handbook, but then you're going to have this policy. this guideline, and they're found elsewhere. We had everything jam-packed into this one document, and it was just overwhelming. So the next step is, of course, making sure that what was in the handbook is properly put into a process or policy internally. But for the most part, it's not needed in that.
And on that note, Chris Gerber from our solicitor's office has offered to provide pro bono training for staff and council on some of those policies. So just a thank you to him for that.
We'll move that to the next meeting. See here, we have an appointment of Jeffrey Mucha to the Finance Committee. Bob, you kicking this off?
Be happy to. We're all of our committees, we're always looking for volunteers and folks that are residents to get involved. And Jeff Muka, great guy, local guy, stepped up, has been coming to the meetings for the last probably 4 or 5 months or so. And has offered some great insights. Jeff's background he's an economist by education, and has worked for Starwood Property Trust for the last 10 plus years, I guess. Most recently as a vice president of Property Trust. He's done many commercial mortgages, the sorts of things, bless you, that we're talking about, tonight in terms of the bonds. Really familiar with credit and just a great financial mind. And we're asking that the council consider adding Jeff to the Finance Committee as a voting member. Jeff, do you want to say a couple words or?
And Jeff, I will ask you to come to the podium though, just so folks on Zoom can hear. Thank you.
Thanks for the kind words, Bob. I've had the privilege of going to the last, as Bob said, 4 or 5 meetings and just kind of had to get an idea of the kinds of things that they're talking about in that room. I think having seen what goes on in there, I think it's a forum that I can, my experience can benefit. And so, like all of you, I'm someone who lives in the community, and my primary motivation is just to see, can it grow in a sustainable way. So hope that I can leverage my background to do that in a small way. So that's it.
Any discussion from council?
As a fellow member of the Finance Committee, I'll just say here to Bob's accolades on Jeff.
Jeff and I are neighbors. We share an alley and many discussions on just what's going on in the borough. He's very vested in the success of the borough, and it's nice to see people get involved anytime on our committees. All right, any objection to moving that to consent? Hearing none, wonderful. All right, we have considering the YMCA community pool proposal, and I do not think at this time we have a formal proposal, but Bob, I think you do have a list of some items that we want to include, and then I think some questions from council may come up. And Mr. Leger, I see you halfway back there, so come on up to the podium because some questions are probably going to come your way. Bob, do you want to kick off?
Happy to. Thank you, President. Nick and his colleague Claire have been working with the borough probably for the last 3 or 4 months since this issue first came up in great faith. And we appreciate you really trying to work with the borough. It is the borough's pool, so he understands we have a little bit of leverage when it comes to this. But we've come to sort of a tentative or draft agreement, which basically would make sure that the Y pool, the borough pool that the Y uses, is open on weekends between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And from the beginning of when school ends, whatever that date happens to be, it will be open all 7 days a week from 2 till 7. And the membership fees will be $175 for an individual for, 2 adults, $275, and for a family of 3 or more, $335. Passes, yep, 175 for an individual. Correct me, Nick, if I'm misquoting this.
Yeah, you're good.
275 for 2 adults or 2 people.
So that would be 2 adults and then how many other kids are living in the household? So if there's 4 kids, the kids are included in that membership.
And so for a family of 3 or more adults plus any children, $335. We're still wrestling a little bit with Nick when it comes to the guest day passes. The Brandywine Valley Y has a $10 per pass fee for a day pass. We'd love to see that come down from there. We've had a couple of conversations around that. And the Y is very willing. They've thrown in the ability for the borough to hold at least 2 free community events, whether it be a family picnic outing or something to use the pool that everyone in the borough can come to for no cost whatsoever. Nick, did I?
No, that was good. And I just add to all of our membership is on income based. So we can go up to 50%. We're actually looking at increasing that to 60% coming the new year. And something that we haven't done in the past, but we're also toying with the idea because we hear you about the guest fees, is including the guest fees in our financial assistance program. Something we haven't done, but we think we could probably manage that. Yeah.
Thanks, Bob. Questions from council?
Also, just to add to, we are planning on opening all 3 pools. We have about $140,000 that we're planning to put into that pool for capital expenses, just to get it back up and running how it used to be.
And the borough, or well, if we agree to this, would also support the Y in grant applications as a sponsor, however we could. Not out of pocket dollars, but at least to try to get those grant dollars for the Y pool benefit.
We would try with the caveat that if we're going for the same grant source or other things like that, but we would try to help in that way.
Yeah. And we appreciate that.
One of the ideas that got floated around more is the library has some free Longwood day passes for Longwood that they loan out. So would there be an opportunity to maybe have something similar for the community pool? The library might know better who's actual for her resident. And
Yeah, we can certainly look into something like that. And something to also add to, so we will be running a membership promotion that if you join the Y before March 31st, the outdoor pool would be included in your membership as well. So there's no added fee for that. Our other outdoor pools in our association don't have a membership fee. Like you can't just buy to join the outdoor pool. The Kennet pool would be the exception to that.
Nick, I just want to be clear for families that are in a different financial bracket, they could qualify up to 50% off of the rates.
Correct.
And maybe up to 60%.
Maybe up to 60.
How does the process work or how difficult is it for somebody to access that? Or is it really clear?
So we're working on the process. We've had some iterations over the years. Currently right now, or what we will be requiring come the new year is just 2 current pay stubs. It's on a sliding scale. So if a household of 80,000 or below, based on that income level, that's the percentage off on the membership. And we're looking at adjusting that coming the new year as well and increasing it.
One of the suggestions that I made considering accessibility was looking at Longwood Gardens model. They look at the benefits that households who live under the poverty guidelines or receive certain financial considerations can access the gardens for $2 a ticket versus the 27 or so by just showing proof of a benefit that they receive. So that might be worth helping.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in learning more about that. It's along the lines of the conversation that we've been having. So, thank you.
Just for clarity, the conversation around the pool passes, the library has, I believe 4, it could be 6, memberships that are transferable for Longwood Gardens. So you can call the library today, and if nobody has checked those out for the day, you could go to Longwood Gardens for free using those passes. And so the thought was, could we have the same, 6 passes so that it wasn't an unlimited number of people that could come free for today, but at any given time, a family could check out passes if they were available so they could access. So in other words, basically it's a transferable membership.
Sure.
In a sense for somebody, but it was capped. So you weren't having 50 freebies today, but at any given time, there might be 4 people or a family of 4 or 6 could check out a pass if it was free.
Yeah, I think we can definitely do that.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned, we don't have a formal agreement right now, but I think that we're definitely moving in the right direction. I don't want to rush this for Wednesday to take action, but I think that maybe by the first meeting in January, if council would be in a position to vote on something more formal, I think that would be great.
So
With what we could.
Sure.
Agreed to.
We are, as I mentioned, we are getting ready to launch that membership promotion. So our tentative plan right now is to start marketing the outdoor pool and everything come end of December. So if we could get a formal agreement sooner, that'd be helpful for us.
We will take it on Wednesday. Absolutely. I didn't want to put undue pressure, but if that works into your marketing campaign,
Yeah, yeah.
then let's get it here and we'll get it added on Wednesday. Cool. Yep. All right. Anything else for Nick? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bob, I appreciate your work as well on that.
It was Mike Kanji and Nick Perigo who were the first 2 folks that raised it as an issue, and we got it going, so that's great.
All right. Considering the contract with the Brandywine Valley SPCA, Chief, are you kicking this off or Kyle or?
Would you mind just kind of explaining what the service is? Let me just pull it up here.
YMCA will not be on consent. Yes, I'm sorry. Further discussion.
So for the agreement with the SPCA, this kind of came about in a way that I wasn't too thrilled about, but unfortunately, we're going to deal with it. At last week's meeting over at the Chester County Police Chiefs Association, we had the SPCA and their attorneys in to discuss some of the changes in the dog laws that are taking place and the impacts that it was going to have on them. At that point in time, we found out that there has been sort of a last minute discussion going on throughout Chester County with changes in their service. They have brought forward a contract. It's a 5-year contract with each municipality in Chester County. And really, they are the only service provider in this county or in this area to provide this service to the municipality, which we are obligated to actually have to. So what has changed is they are now doing a baseline contract fee for every year at $2,000. There is also now what's considered a maintenance fee on a monthly basis, which we are paying, is another $300 per month, but it's paid up front in January of each year. So it puts our minimum obligation for 2024 at $5,600. Then on top of that, there are individual animal fees, which we've always paid, but unfortunately the fees are substantially higher. Each fee now for every dog that is turned in, captured, or confined that is turned in, whether it's from the municipality or whether it's from a resident, who has this at their home. Each dog fee is now $400. Each cat that is turned in is $200. Top of that, there's also an activity fee of $65 for every animal that's turned in. My equations, this is about a 365% increase on what our service costs have been. We will, based on our previous couple years of data, we will probably spend roughly about $11,600. Whereas we've come in under $4,000 for the past at least 2 years of contracting. This is supposed to be an equitable change for the SPCA to provide these services. I'm not quite sure who it's equitable for other than the SPCA. and perhaps the salary of the CEO. But that's another conversation. So this has unfortunately been brought forth in the 11th hour of the year. But if we want to try and get some type of a discount, it's a very small one. We will need to actually provide this back to them before January 1st. And we'll get a slight discount. I'm hopeful for any discount.
And just to add to it, the chief said it really well, that this came to the area managers in early fall, and we all had the same reaction. So it's not just a Kennett issue. A team of a handful of area managers went and met with the SPCA and came back with essentially the takeaway the chief had, which is there is no alternative, and we need animal control. So that's where we're at.
When possible, do we recover any of those?
The only times that we do recover fees, and it's none of these, it's only if the owner is actually cited for a violation. So if they are cited for maybe a cruelty to animal, any citations that funnel through our district court process, we actually see that back. It is a small amount.
Somebody finds a dog in Anson B. Nixon Park, either calls y'all or brings the dog to the station. You're getting charged $400.
It's a dog. As long as it's in the borough side of Anson B. Nixon
Now,
Park.
when the owner shows up to
They're
collect.
all in the family.
Yeah. So I typically get monthly invoices from any activity from the SPCA. And I scrutinize every single one because as you know, the Kennett, we fall under the 19348. A lot of times they are not actual Kennett Borough cases. A small percentage. I'll say probably 10% of the time we find out that they're not. But yes, any animal that is turned in, even if they don't turn it into us, if they go straight from the homeowner contacts the SPCA, they come out, or the homeowner takes it over to them. And it could be a litter of 6 kittens that get turned in. We get charged $1,200 plus the activity fee. Every animal we are now charged for at this higher rate. Whether we've touched it, had any involvement, if it happens within the municipality jurisdictional limits.
Why are they not charging?
So think of it this, it's not technically like an abandonment issue. Maybe it's you know, all of a sudden you notice that there's a kitten that's living under your porch. That's usually where it comes from. Now, if it is an issue where it's somebody's animal that's been loose, we actually will also take the avenue of citing them and get that money back, you know, throughout the court process. But it doesn't change our obligation of having to pay this. We have nothing, and I'll kind of leave that over to Mike, a resource of going after the person for that.
No, you're right.
Is there anything we can do on the front end from an education or communication standpoint that could assist minimizing that at all? I mean, because these are probably going to be strays. They're not going to be people, or is it mostly strays?
Well, it's a mixture. You know, typically on a normal year, we have anywhere from 7 to 9 occurrences where we have animals that need to be picked up from the SPCA, whether it's at station, whether it's, you know, direct calls. And it's really a mixture sometimes of that it is just a stray animal, or that it's animals that have been found that there's no claim of ownership, even after their process.
Your point, Mr. President, it would make sense to put something on the borough's website so that
Just
people
so people
know how
know.
much it costs.
Watch your freaking dogs and cats.
It's not not a free service. It's something that costs quite a bit of money.
What Mike said, I don't imagine the general person from the public realizes that there's this type of cost.
That's what I'm.
Most people think that the SPCA is there to just provide the service and there's nothing else to it, that is privately funded.
I just thought they recovered it like when you brought them stray boxes there. My assumption is like they're getting the money from the people if they're now turning around and adopting out. So they turn around.
No, they gotta.
Charge us. Yeah.
Mhm.
Perfect.
The agreement actually requires that we post the SPCA on our website.
Do not believe that's on the borough's website.
Did a little search. But it is a requirement in the agreement.
We don't have it on our crime watch either. Last thing to add, that it does come with a 4% increase each year.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate that.
So if there's some people who want to volunteer to take the kittens instead of these
Well, no, that
Only
part of the,
outside the borough.
part of the contract is also that we cannot utilize any other services available. So if we were to find somebody that,
put that on Facebook, not through, just saying.
All right. Any further discussion on this item that we really have no control over on Wednesday, or can it go to consent? All right, I am moving to consent. CAPA funding request for capital improvements to Anson B. Nixon.
Yeah, so this came to us about a month and a half ago, roughly. It has gone through the finance committee. Anson B. Nixon is looking to do some work on the barn near their waterworks facility. They're anticipating the project to cost $112,000, and the request here is for $65,000 from the borough, with the remainder to come from grants and donations of concrete and some other services. The request coming here has been modified to be $30,000, with the request for the remainder to come from Kennet Township, who is our partner with Anson B. Nixon.
Oh, go ahead, Kathleen.
Just one correction, if I may. I think, correct me, Joel, was it, I thought we recommended 32 or half, 32.5. Does that ring a bell?
Which is, I believe, what you just said, since we're gonna be splitting in the township.
Right. The
You
agenda
said
shows
30.
30.
So
I thought we, at the finance committee, I thought we had recommended the 32.5 to split the 65, if I recall. Nick, do you remember?
This is a policy question, so we can change it to 32.5 if that's the desire.
I think that's what the finance committee recommended. If I'm wrong, please correct me. And just so everyone knows, there's a park fee in lieu of fund, which currently sits at 390,273 roughly. Which is monies that are collected from developers who do not provide recreational facilities on their project. It's a requirement that you have to do that. If not, this pool of money goes into the borough to be used for these types of things, which is also how we're funding our annual donation to the park as well, based on last year's recommendation from the council. So that 32.5 would come out of the 390,000 plus dollars.
Not out of tax.
Correct.
right.
it's essentially a fund that we're already using to fund the park.
Yep.
And they're drawing down on that. You know, it's gonna go to them eventually. They're the only game in town, but-
Anything else from council? So any objection to moving to consent with the change from 30,000 to 32.5? Okay, so 32.5 is what we'll move to consent. All right. Bob, keep rolling. Approval of bills paid.
Finance committee reviewed the invoices through the 10th through the 9th of November in the amount of $908,728.90, and recommend approval of those invoices being paid.
Anything from council? Move that to consent, and then we've got a couple meeting minutes from November 6th and 8th. Anything on that? Being none, we will move that to consent. That wraps up our discussion items. Anything else from council tonight?
Ms. D'Antonio at our November 6th meeting had asked the council to look into whether or not, I believe it was Ms. D'Antonio, am I correct? Whether or not we could set up a payment option for residents because of the increase, the cost and the increase in the cost of our real estate taxes. And Nick and team have done some work on that, and there are opportunities to do that. If we do that, we have to enact that in January. Nick, do you mind sharing the details?
So I've reached out to our tax collector, Berkheimer, and they do offer the option to have taxpayers pay in installments if they choose. We just have to set up the parameters such as the due dates, how many installments we want to have, and that kind of thing. Currently, we're looking at some comparable areas to see, what they do and try to kind of model it after that. The caveat is that if an individual wants to take advantage of this, they lose the eligibility to take a discount, the 2% discount of paying in full by April 30th. But obviously it gives them the flexibility to spread out their payments. We're going to continue to look at it. We do need to report that to the tax collector, how we want to have this set up in January, Bob, that's correct, with any changes to our rates, which we are going to presumably have. But it's still kind of a work in process right now, but in some form, we expect to have an installment option available.
That, you think it's doable by this coming year, or might it, I wouldn't want to rush it and not communicate it effectively and have it clear. So is that maybe something that we look for next year?
I think it's certainly doable. We actually, in the middle of last year, after our big increase, there were some inquiries about doing it. And it was, at that point, it was not logistically possible or feasible. And we were recommended to, if we wanted to enact something, to do it at the beginning of the tax year. So to answer your question, yes, I think it's certainly feasible to do.
Anything else for Nick?
So this is something that we set up through, or we tell Berkheimer that we want to do it. And so currently there's no option to pay in installments because we haven't told them that we want to do it.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
We need to give them the parameters. They'll do however we want to set it up. If we want to make it, every month have a payment, or every, 6 weeks, or however we want to do it. They just need to know it. Obviously, there's going to be more cost and time for them to, to print the payment slips.
And so if someone wants to elect to do this, they don't have to start until they get their actual tax bill, presumably.
Right.
or-
We would probably have the first payment due at the same time the discount deadline is, which is April 30th. The idea is probably April 30th, May 31st, and June 30th.
Okay.
Because June 30th is also the deadline to pay in full at face value. After June 30th, you're hit with a 10% penalty. So.
And Nick, could you speak to some of the fees that go into the additional payments from Berkheimer?
Yeah, it's 50 cents per payment that they process under this. Right now, it costs $1 for every bill. It's essentially an administrative printing fee, more or less. So, which we do budget. We budget about $1,700 in our budget every year for printing. That's the cost. There's they don't collect any commission on the tax. They would add a 50 cents more per payment process. So if somebody pays in 3 installments, it's an additional $1.50 for that particular property. However, and that cost is obviously pretty minimal when you think about it to the borough. But those costs are essentially recovered in the fact that the individual will not be able to take advantage of the 2% discount. So we're getting more of the face value of the tax that way. So it kind of offsets, it keeps the administrative part of that out of our hands and lets them take care of all that.
Nick, thanks so much for looking. Yeah, go ahead, Charlotte.
That's what he
That's-
said.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
That's the first.
right,
As-
that would
as
be
the-
the first,
as the
but
first.
that it is with that caveat that they're gonna lose it. Oh, no.
I apologize. If I said that, I apologize.
Oh, geez.
Well, and that's why I say we're still working on comparing things. No, I understand. Mhm. No,
Thank you, Nick.
I understand.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, anything else from council? Oh, Ms.
I
Kakama.
wanted to thank Daniel. So Daniel's still here at the holiday parade. So I want to thank the police department, the fire department, and Kennett Collaborative, Carol Silberti, who takes on setting up the lineup for the parade, which is a big task. I've never seen that many people in town. They were parking like it was the Memorial Day parade on my side of town. It was crazy. I was driving home trying to get home. So that was brilliant. I think people want it to be longer in length. I know.
All right, that'll come next year. No, but Daniel, and not only that, but I know the winter market as well, and just both very successful events. So well done. Mr. Manager,
Nothing to add.
Mr. Mayor. All right, meeting adjourned.